Hi, folks. Welcome to another edition of Lowdown on Low Code. Um, just want to say thank everybody for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, hit the share button. Help us get the word out to other like-minded folks. I'm here with my often partner in crime, John Rymer. How are you, John?
Very well, Rob. Excited to be here today and participate in this episode.
This one is cool for a couple of reasons. So, thing number one, our guest today is really one of the pioneers of low code and was behind one of the more successful products out there, one of the more successful solutions in the low code space, but is now thinking about things differently, which is very much in line with our recent podcasts around vibe coding. We'll get into a little definitional stuff. But today we have with us Praveen Seshadri. He was the founder of AppSheet, later sold that to Google, and then went off and started Thunk AI, a very different approach to developing quickly and efficiently and effectively. How are you, Praveen? It's good to see you again, old friend.
It's great to see both of you. We both we spent many hours talking through many things in that sort of
With
journey.
a lot less gray hair back in the day. So here we are.
Almost no hair. So, yes.
Growing old together. Yeah. We're all a little follically challenged as well. So listen, let's jump right in. I'm going to pass things over to my co-host, John.
So Praveen, we know a lot about you and your background, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of our audience doesn't. So we always like to start the podcast with the question, tell us about your journey. How did you arrive at the point you're at right now, building something new? Tell us about that journey, Praveen, if you would.
All right. Let me try to make it, sound interesting. So I have a PhD in computer science. I got a PhD working on database systems. And this was in the 90s. And then I started teaching at Cornell. I taught database systems. And the area was really all about query processing, which, as all of us know, you write your queries in SQL, which is a declarative language. And so very early, I was sort of trained to think about programming in terms of write things declaratively, let the system run it for you. In fact, that's the only trick I know. That's the only trick I know. I play the same trick again and again. So anyway, in the late 90s, I did a mobile database startup that Microsoft got interested in. So I moved to Microsoft and worked on that. It became part of a small part of SQL Server. It stayed there for about 12 years in Microsoft. And then in about 2012, they said, look, I can't be in this big company. I got to do something else. So a couple of us, Brian and I, at various points quit and we started this company. We didn't know what we were doing. It was the start of the mobile revolution. We were just a couple of engineers. And we, wandered the wilderness for a couple of years, building different things for different people, mobile apps. And we realized we're not starting from scratch every time. We've got some common code we're using. And that started to look like a platform because we were just being efficient. And so a couple of years in, we were like, maybe there's a platform here that people can build their own apps on, and they don't need to be programmers. And everybody thought we were crazy, and we didn't have a name to describe any of this stuff. And we were not good salespeople or anything. So we were just engineers. So that was sort of the beginnings of building at that time what became soon, through other people's marketing money, became called a no-code app platform. And we were doing product-led growth because we had no money to do any other kind of growth. And so that became product-led growth. It got a term. We started having this self-service platform called AppSheet, and called that because we said, put your data in a spreadsheet and build an app from it. AppSheet, and we could afford the domain name because it was cheap. So that was the beginnings of that. And then we did that for many years. And it was sort of a long slog because most people looked at me like, who wants to do this? This is kind of crazy. But around 2018, I feel around that period of time, you guys at Forrester, other people started giving this stuff a name. It was no code and low code, became interesting. And then Google decided to acquire us just before the pandemic. So we joined Google. AppSheet was a product. By that time, it had many thousands of users, became part of Google Workspace. We spent 3 years at Google integrating it. So that's that part of the story. The main problem there was everybody knew what mobile apps were. Everybody could see what those outputs were, and they knew they could be built by software engineers, but it was expensive and time consuming to do. So wouldn't it be nice if it was easier to do and people who have the ideas could just do it? So the problem being solved through all of no-code and low-code platforms was just lower the barrier to entry, reduce the cost of development, And potentially the implicit assumption was you're going to lose out on some things. Maybe you lose out on some flexibility, the quality, speed, blah, blah, blah. That was the game. But you were building deterministic software. Eventually, it was software a developer could have built. You built it a different way. Around 2019, we added a feature in AppSheet, which was, can you describe your application in English? And we did a preview. In fact, I think we might have previewed it to you guys too. And a bunch of people told us, this kind of a little early. I can see this AI stuff coming 5 years down the road. And we were like, these analysts, they're always like knocking us, but it's kind of true. So back then, this LLM stuff wasn't quite real. So we had some hacky stuff to understand the language. Then we could map it into these artifacts so you could build applications. Our demo would work well and nobody else could use it. We got to Google. About a year in, one of my classmates at Google, who was employee number 20 at Google, had been there a long time, invited him to come to our team offsite and just said, tell us what's going on at Google. We just got acquired. We don't know nothing, right? So, and he showed us a preview of LLM technology, which was internal to Google. It had been invented at Google, actually. And so he showed us that, and a couple of us, Tony Fader, who's one of the co-founders now of Thunk AI, and we were like, wow, this is so amazing because this is what's going to become this way of describe your application in English and have it be built.
Right.
And so we were super excited about that. But at the time, things were moving pretty slowly at Google. We went through 3 years there. And then 2023, we quit. We were joined by another person, Mina, who was a Gen AI lead PM at Meta. And three of us started this company. And that's called Thunk AI. The general idea is build applications that can think and act intelligently and flexibly. So that's kind of the journey.
I actually remember that demo, Praveen, because you guys were always kind of ahead of the, a step ahead of the rest of the market. Technically, I felt anyway. I was at Forrester, still at Forrester at that time. And I remember you giving me that demo and it was like, oh my, this is really different. So anyway, thanks for that. Barb, over to you.
Yeah, it was cool stuff. So let's get on to the topic of Thunk, Thunk, I guess, if I'm thinking about how we go with that. So you went from AppSheet, right? And AppSheet, I think, you really proved something out with AppSheet, the other low-code vendors as well. I think it was actually really interesting during COVID, how many really highly scaled mission-critical apps where I live in Alameda County in California, if you scroll to the bottom, built on AppSheet, they had to be built very, very quickly, and they performed very, very well. But there's a different way. There's a better way. So I mean, if we as recently as just a couple weeks ago, Charles Lamanna from Microsoft gets up and says low code is dead in its current form. I can't remember the exact way he phrased it. And I think you've been acting on that for a while, Praveen. We hear vibing. We use the term vibing, vibe coding, different things. Tell us what you're doing at Thunk AI. Tell us how it relates to this different way of approaching rapid development.
Yeah. In broad strokes, I agree that the class of problem being solved by the no-code and low-code platforms of the last decade, that approach is largely defunct given today's technology. Let me explain why. All of those problems were problems of constructing traditional software, deterministic software that runs a particular way. And it was very clear how to build them. You could build them with code, and the no-code and low-code platforms gave you a faster way to build those same deterministic applications. Why were they relevant at all? Because writing code was difficult for human beings to do. And so to convert from intent into something deterministic was awkward, time-consuming, complicated. And we built these intermediate abstractions that were easier to map to a no-code platform, a low-code platform, etc. Now it turns out the LLMs, especially utilizing the models that generate code, are tremendously good at taking intent and translating it into deterministic code. In other words, the artifact in which intent is then translated into is traditional code, deterministic, and the generation of that has been automated using LLMs. LLMs have solved the problem of human inefficiency. Great. That problem is So that class of old no-code solutions largely defunct. Largely, there's a whole bunch of edge cases here, because if you work with vibe coding, you realize generating that code initially is great, and then it's an opaque mess. And you adding to it and changing it and wrapping your head around it and so on is not so easy at all. So for software engineers, it's really good because it gets you started. You wrap your head around it and you proceed. But for non-software engineers, I don't think this solves the problem. Unless you're doing a one-off thing, you show a demo and proceed. So I think there's a subtopic here, which is if you want to build deterministic applications, can you really do it without software engineers? Vibe coding or no vibe coding, the answer is still no. But that's a subjective thing, which is just at any point in time, or is it going to be such that who knows, a year from now, the LLMs might be great at producing the initial code and augmenting it and debugging it and everything else. That seems to be the direction. If I were a betting man, that's what I'd bet on. That said, this is not wildly interesting to me, because the class of problems that you build traditional software for, many of those important applications were being built anyway, right? Sure, we can build more of them. We can build them easier. But that's not what's going to transform the world. It's not where AI is going to transform the world. It's going to transform the world in the class of applications that were never being built before at all, because they were not purely deterministic applications. It's a class of problems which required flexibility and judgment and thought and adaptability, which up until this point, only humans could do. But now, if you can have software deal with this class of problems, it opens up this wide new terrain of intelligent applications. So it's not about the construction of them. Sure, you have to construct them, but it's really about the execution of them. And so can they execute with relatively ambiguous instructions where it's not, everything's not nailed down, and still conform to them, be compliant with them, do reliable things, behave the way a really trustworthy, smart, and educated individual might in solving those problems. If you can do that, that's a wide new territory or class of applications. Call them intelligent ones. And that's what we're trying to support the creation and execution of with Thunk AI.
So I think we're starting to scratch on the surface around empowering the business to have more role in optimizing their work and optimizing the work of the enterprise. We're going to get back to that in just a bit here. Over to you, John.
So Praveen, what I hear you saying is that what we call vibing, which is plain English or plain language to describe your intent, and then the LLM takes that input and creates something. That's part of the new world that you're describing. It's the output. We're not doing traditional deterministic applications more quickly. We're doing a new class or new classes of apps. Have I got that right?
That's exactly right. It's the input, the language of intent is natural language, but the artifact being created is a net new artifact that never existed before.
So is it, tell us a little bit about some people talk about agentic as a new class, and it's a new class because it combines deterministic logic when deterministic logic is required, and predictive logic, the predictive logic of generative AI when that is an advantage, like search or ambiguity. Is that what you're talking about, or maybe could you give us a little idea
Totally.
of what we're looking at?
Totally. This entire class of automated intelligent work has been wrapped under this umbrella of agent or agentic, but there's just like, agent washing and everything else. Everybody wants to call that stuff agentic. So I'll try to sort of see, here's a way I would sort of break this down. At a 30,000 foot level, you say an agent is something you delegate some high level work to and it does it for you. And you don't have to give it, you've delegated some ability for it to do work, proceed towards your intent. That said, it's a Google search an agent. You gave it, asked for it to search something, it did some work. So, nah, we don't think of this as an agent. Fine. Now, is ChatGPT an agent? I ask a question, gives me an answer. Is it an agent? Now, some people start to say originally it wasn't. They just spat out some stuff. And then now they've effectively got a little loop inside it where it does some thinking. And, basically it's a little loop. And then it gives you back an answer after it's gotten through its loop. So at a certain technical level, agents over a language model or AI model are really something that sits in the loop, calls the model a bunch of times, and reflects on its state and decides when to conclude. So, in fact, if you look at Karpathy's blog, he says at the end of the day, I've got to define an agent. It's something that calls an LLM in a loop. So it's super low level description, not interesting. So everybody's got agents in some form using AI because they're trying to do some higher order things than just spit out an immediate answer. That's it. The kind of there's different kinds of applications you can build with agents. The class of applications I'm really interested in, and we are with Thunk AI, is things that automate work. And so you want to take repeatable problems rather than one-off problems. I could say I've got a one-off problem. I need to book a trip to Hawaii, consumer problem for my family, give it to some system that acts like an agent, explores various options, presents me some choices, tells me what the price is. Sure, that's an agent, but it's not a business automation agent. It's a sort of a one-off task kind of agent. Across all of my vibe coding, we got agents. You got a Claude agent, you got the Codex agent, Cursor agent. They're helping me. I say, I want to add code for something. It does a bunch of work. As an agent, produces the answer, but it's a one-off. On the other hand, customer success agent, something that's, or an agent that's trying to review potentially fraudulent transactions, or an agent that's trying to manage a project and its work items. These are things which have some consistent automated behavior. And we know a lot of our organizations and businesses run on repeatable processes. And so this class of processes where there's some standard operating procedure, but it's not all translated into like a program. That's a space where agents can really drive really meaningful productivity and value in work. So that's the part of agents we're super interested in.
Got it. Thank you for that. I had another question, which was when we talk about vibing and vibe coding, we're talking about the expression of intent, and that would be a function of that a platform would provide. So, but in the low code space, I don't think it's dead yet, but in the low code space, another of the benefits that the low code platforms provided was they helped you deploy the application. They helped you manage changes to the application. Are those functions going to be important going forward, do you believe?
Yes. And in fact, there's a lot of detail that at the moment people are not really tuned into because they're caught up in both the glamour of and the difficulty of the sort of the high order bit, which is, can I get my intent translated into something meaningful? Let's work this down this order. The most difficult thing isn't, can I do something intelligent? Everybody's sort of accepted now. What was remarkable 2 years ago is now, standard. You're like, big deal. I asked an intelligent system to do something, it did something intelligent. The reason most AI agentic automation in businesses, at least, is not in deployment. There's all kinds of articles about this 5% deployed and whatever. The reason they're not in deployment is because what we're looking for is not just intelligent. We don't want a savant agent producing a different thing every time. We want something reliable, and reliable is not that it doesn't fail, but that it does what you expect it to do. It's consistent. It's compliant with your direction. And if it's going to run 1,000 times a day, it needs to do similar things audibly, all that stuff, right? So that almost obedient version of intelligence is a difficult thing. And so I think that's sort of the first baseline of a system that does this. It's got to be able to do that. And this is nothing to do whether it's low code or no code or anything else. You could use LangChain, which is a coding based system. You could use Thunk AI, which is a sort of like a lang chain for business users. Either way, you had an intent and it needs to be conformed to without a lot of different interpretations every time. So that's A. And you need all the mechanisms for the human to tighten and steer this to achieve reliability. If we were training an intern, we'd show them through trial and error and say, this is okay, this is not okay, these are the guidelines, whatever else. What's the equivalent as well? Not so clear. That's being invented right now.
Got it.
Then you got all these questions of, all right, to actually put this in production, how much work do you have to do? I wrote an article on Medium, which really disses the concept of a forward deployed engineer. I hate that concept. It's a little controversial because a lot of people seem to love it, but they're the people who go basically get huge checks from their customers, right? But this notion that you have to take an engineer, a person who's deeply familiar with the code, and forward deploy them to build one solution for a customer tells you this thing wasn't intelligent at all. So there's a huge amount of work below, whatever the top of the iceberg is all the intelligent stuff, and all the stuff below, which is how do you make the system effectively a self-service system? That's where the full power of this is going to come in. Is business user, you have your idea, you should describe it in your high-level natural language. It works, and you can tune it, you can understand it, and you can deploy it, and it doesn't need your army of super experienced and expansive forward deployed engineers building some brittle thing that's going to break the next time we have to change it. So that's we can dive into that topic, but I'm not a fan of the forward deployed engineer.
I get it. Thank you, Praveen. That was excellent. Rob, over to you.
We will not dive into forward deployment during the course of this podcast, but I would, other than to say, if you can convince people that forward deployment is a good strategy, you're going to be very rich for a very long time, which is not necessary, which somebody's paying for you to be rich, and it probably shouldn't be coming out of my pocket. Hey, folks, if you like what you're hearing here on Lowdown on Low Code and you want to interact a little bit more with the folks behind it, brought to you by analysis.tech. If you want to interact more with John Rymer, with myself, Rob Koplowitz, with any of our colleagues, Dave Marcus, Francis Carden, Andy Bartels, Rick Greenwald, please give us a visit over at analysis.tech. John, back to you.
So thinking, I get it. I'm excited by what you're describing. As an enterprise, what do I need to do to start adopting this set of ideas, Praveen? What should I be doing? Maybe top 3 things.
What I realize is that there's 2 approaches here: the toe in the water or the strategic approach. The toe in the water is fine for learning, but I really view it as are you doing a tactical adoption of agentic AI, where you say, here's a particular problem. I'm pretty sure agentic AI should help with this. Why don't I try, let's say, hey, I've got a lot of customer success tickets, customer support tickets. They're slow responding. My customers are not happy. Maybe I can, and it's expensive. Maybe I can make it more efficient. The strategic approach is we have to become an AI first business, at least from the point of view of our operations. Ideally, also from the point of view of our product offerings, but let's just focus on how we run our company or business has to be AI first. That's a strategic differentiator for us. These are the 2 approaches. If you take the first approach, then you're going to have identified where you want to make progress, and you're then going to be hit with, I've got 1,001 vendors all pitching me all at the same time about things that sound approximately the same. Every SaaS company on the planet says, I gave you this thing already, which was standard SaaS, and now I've added my AI icing on this cake. What more do you need? You had customer success, I have a customer support ticket solution. I added AI to it. I had my marketing solution, I had AI to it. So you can pick a point AI solution. It will give you something, but truth be told, it'll probably either A, not be differentiated, B, may not give you the success you want, largely because doing agentic AI automation well is difficult. It is not a standardized skill set that you can hire lots and lots of software engineers around the world to do. It's not well understood enough yet. So it's not the same as adding one more feature to a SaaS product. It's not like building UI or adding something to a database, etc. So that's it. But you'll get some traction, you'll get some learning. Um, the strategic approach is to say, what does it mean to really be an AI first business? And there's relatively few companies that are doing this. That typically comes top down. This pressure comes from the board and the executives to say, we're at a transformative moment. Let's revisit all of our processes and see, and encourage all of our teams to say, what can you do with AI? Show us what you're doing with AI. It's not forced upon them. They're encouraged to do it, and they are rewarded for it. And some may fail, some may succeed, but they have 10, 15, 20, 100 projects going. In that world, you need you need some platform that's not 100 platforms all doing different things, but you need some kind of operating system for your business that says, here's how you actually drive agentic automation across marketing, sales, operations, ticketing, all of these different things. And do it in a consistent way. And as that gets better and we can learn about it and learn and improve on it, all of our platforms. So these, I think, are the two approaches. And the organizations are picking which way they go, and depends on their risk tolerance and their, how they view the world.
And their vision.
That's right. And, sometimes you could move too early, you could move too late, and who knows what the right answer is. And so everybody is picking.
Yeah. Thank you, Praveen. Rob, over to you.
Hey, I want to get back to that comment I made earlier about the business and the involvement of the business. A couple of weeks ago, we had Stevie Sims on from Shell, and Stevie Sims was a fascinating story. Started out on an oil rig, had a bunch of ideas of how things could be done better, and he implemented those. He implemented those in software. Here's the problem. That's not happening at the scale that we thought it was going to happen, right? We really thought everybody was going to be a software developer, that you were really going to take your business knowledge, your business insight, and use it to optimize how the business runs. So let's give low code a C minus D plus in accomplishing that. And no fault to the vendors. We just weren't able to drive the organizational changes that we needed in order to fully embrace that. Is this going to be a better path to getting us there, Praveen?
I think without a doubt, there's various reasons. First, the scope of change of outcome here is at least a 10x, maybe 100x. Largely because, and hence the excitement of how much this is driving the economy and the 5 trillion for NVIDIA and everything else. Just because we have only scratched the surface in terms of imagining what software and computers can do once we have broken out of in some sense, we are shackled to certain expectations of what software can do. From the time software started, so for 70 years, we said it can only run deterministic programs. Now, when they started out, people said, oh yeah, we can do this for accounting. We do it for certain things, the 60s, IBM and whatever else. And then gradually, we expanded our sort of frontiers of what deterministic software could do to take on these things that no human was doing. It wasn't we were replacing some human doing accounting. We were doing all kinds of new things, opening up frontiers. We're at the starting stage of what can AI do? And it's obvious that it can do this wild set of things, potentially, not yet well, but right, that haven't been done yet, haven't been automated. No humans doing them. So, and all of them are value generating. So I look at that and say, all right, so there's all this opportunity. The second thing that is wonderful is there isn't a small class of high priests who have access to this technology. That was the problem with traditional software. You needed your computer science degree, master's degree, PhD degree, years and years of training, blah, 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 and you just get hoarded away at Facebook or Microsoft or whatever else. And what about that entire set of every other business and company in the world? Where's the talent pool to get where these high priests? Not available. You see, but it truly might be the case that this democratization stuff can happen now because your intent can be translated more directly. That's to me, it feels, this is why, to me, it's exciting at my stage in life to work 80 hours a week and build this stuff, because I've been working this declarative thing for 30, 35 years, but finally now it actually feels like there's a true potential to democratize things. And whether it's for people in a big company, people in a small company, doesn't matter. But you've unshackled them from the curse of needing a software engineer. I'd say that as a software engineer myself. Then wow. So yeah, I really think the business user, the layperson, are going to be so empowered um, to use these powerful computers now to do stuff which they couldn't before.
Fantastic place to close on. Thank you, Praveen, for joining us today. The company is Thunk AI, THUNK.ai. Couldn't be easier to find. Praveen, thanks for coming on today. John, thanks for co-hosting.
Thanks for inviting me and to co-host, and thanks, Praveen. It's great to catch up with you again, and best of luck.
It
Yeah.
was great to have the opportunity, and of course, it's wonderful to catch up with both of
So
you.
let's come back again in a year when you've grown a bunch. Keep in touch with us in the interim, but when you've grown a bunch and have many, many more cool stories to share with our audience.
Will do.
All right.
Take care.